There's an epigram tacked to my office bulletin board pinched from a magazine. Wanting to meet an author because you like his work is like wanting to meet a duck because you like pate. Margaret Atwood. This is AMI Audiobook Review. Fan fiction is an enigma to a lot of us, often understood as weird, shallow ripoffs of established titles written by immature authors that live in their mom's basements. The truth is that it's an organic, passionate response to the stories that we all love. I'm Jacob Shamansky. Ram Yamathan is with me. Rams, what's up?
Not much. What a savage way of thinking about fan fiction, though.
I really started with the worst possible opinion about it, but I'm telling you, in my research, that's how it's come up. All my interactions with fan fiction have been very negative in the responses that I've seen from people. What about you? Like, what's the stereotype you have in your mind of fan fiction?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to like the nerdy side, like the real nerdy side of getting into things. So I guess, and also, by the way, I have absolutely nothing that I'm basing this off of except stereotypes. So I would probably have thought the same way. Your entire read there just reminded me of The Big Bang Theory. So and those guys are nerds.
Niz Sunablalmajid is with us too, being the technical producer. Niz, what's your take on fan fiction?
I'm down for it, man.
Yeah? Okay. Short and
I'm
sweet.
with it.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Well,
I'm down with it.
I think
yeah.
The three of us don't really know all that much about fan fiction other than crappy stereotypes. So we brought in an expert. Our coworker, Cassandra Chaddock, is a fan fiction connoisseur, and I'm labeling her as a fan fiction expert. Cassandra, thanks for being in studio.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I have a degree in fan fiction. I went to school for it. I have a master's.
Were you offended by the initial idea we put of fan fiction out there?
No.
No? Oh,
okay,
that's pretty accurate.
I'm glad.
Embrace it.
I am so immersed in that fandom lifestyle that at this point, the outsiders, the people that aren't in it, I just like, yeah, I can see why you think it's weird because we're really intense and there's much to learn.
Okay, so for the people who are really uninitiated, from the point of view of somebody who's really in that world, what is fan fiction?
So fan fiction are stories written by fans from pre-existing media, TV shows, movies, anime, video games, but it extends beyond existing media. It can also be real people that get fan fiction written about themselves. We know a lot. Actually, I'm not sure how much you know, but Harry Styles has been the center of a lot of fanfic. And I know someone who read hockey fan fiction.
Yeah, I've heard of this. Really, really weird. And then suddenly that made a bunch of women get into hockey.
Hold up a sec. What is hockey fanfic? Like you just take professional hockey players and write fan fiction around them?
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
I know of it.
That sounds like it could go down a trillion different roads.
Let's stick to fan fiction based on IPs, then we're going to get to this weird world of fan fiction based on real people. So like, what does it look like if I want to go and read fan fiction that's based on Lord of the Rings, for example? Like, what type of spin-offs are you going to see from that?
So from my experience, I would see a lot of pairings of main characters. So, for example, Lord of the Rings, Sam and Frodo are shipped, which... Do we know what that word means? Shipped?
Mm-hmm.
It's a romantic thing, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They are shipped to death. They have hundreds of thousands of fanfic written about them. Even like legit beautiful storylines and long form novels written about them. So that's the first way that you would access fanfic, I would say, is because you're very passionate about the pairing of characters, or you're very passionate about the universe in general. And this isn't as popular, but you'll see fanfics where it's exploring, Frodo's trauma or something like that. there's multiple angles.
Okay, so you said legit stories, which begs the question, what is the spectrum of what we would see? Like, let's go back to the shipping of characters, right? So you got like the legit novels and long form stories. How else is fan fiction written? Just like a quick thought, idea?
Yes.
Music videos?
There are music videos. There are like fanfic or inspired music videos. There can be short stories. There's lots of fan art that tells stories, like comics. Short stories, they normally have a narrative arc, but most of the time are the shorter ones tend to be a little more, and I'm going to drop another lingo, smuttier. Do we know what smut means?
It's it's sex, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of terms for that though, eh? Like spice and what else in fan fiction? I know there's a lot of terms for that.
Yeah, there was a mention of lemon, which I think is a classic. I don't know how much that's used anymore, but in the dark ages, it was used more frequently.
What's the origin of that? Was it just supposed to be like innocuous? Like you wouldn't think that that's what it means?
I am sure there are people out there who know the history. I can't confirm. I just know it's been around for ages. Like I would say early 2000s. And for some reason, when I think of lemon, I think of from the anime from the anime Naruto, Sasuke and Naruto, who everyone pairs together, the two main characters. I feel like lemon has some, like its origins are tied with Naruto, but I can't 100% confirm. Even though I do have a master's, I don't know.
Okay, so now you've mentioned two ships. Is this like a huge part of fan fiction culture? Like, is it mainly romance?
I'd say so. I mean, I think so. There are a lot of character studies and universe studies, I guess, where you're passionate enough about, for example, say the original author gets it totally wrong. Like as they're releasing, I'm thinking of like manga, as they're releasing chapters, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And you're like, okay, I'm going to rewrite this because I don't like it. So that, you don't see that as much. People seem to be a lot more passionate about the pairings. Yeah, I mean, and if you look at like the most popular fanfic related stuff like 50 Shades of Grey and, you know, the Harry Potter shipped stuff, most of the time it's romance.
I remember reading fan fiction when One Direction was a big hit, and there were so many stories about like shipments between the band, and I was like, these people, like, this is crazy. They go into romance. They go deep into romance. So that's the shipments are so popular when it comes to that thing.
I love shipments as a word here.
The shipments?
I like that.
Yeah. So the romance part of it, I'm super curious about, because I think like up until now, we haven't really talked about fan fiction being controversial. We just know that people get deep dive into it, right? So if there's romantic endeavors going on in fan fiction, does it get rough? Like, does it get, not in the lemon and spice way, I mean, like, does it get do people get annoyed, and do you see a lot of like back and forth of like, how dare you ship these two together? Or do people just go into the rabbit hole usually?
Shipping wars. That's a
Shipping wars.
Shipping wars. Yeah. Online, things get vicious and violent.
Right.
It gets bad. And also, so as someone who also has enjoyed One Direction fanfic, when I reflect on it, I'm like, these are real people. I wonder how they feel about this.
For real. I guess we can bring that angle into it anytime, because it's true. Like the fantasy side of it, I can understand fanfic, but I am really having a hard time with the real people fanfic.
Yeah, there's a distinction there between things that are based on IPs and things that are based on real people. Like I found fan fiction of like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. It was really weird. But my partner was a huge fan of Harry Styles fan fiction. I actually recorded her elaborating on this a little bit. Okay, Ari, can you tell me a bit about the Harry Styles fan fiction that you were a huge fan growing up?
Yeah. So I got into fan fictions when I was really, really into One Direction during my teenage years. And my favorite fan fictions were the ones where Harry Styles was the main character. And there were so many different types of fan fictions. There were some where Harry was like a teacher, others where he was a drug dealer, other ones where he was a really wanted criminal. So, you know, you had every fan fiction for every taste. And I was really into them. I would say my favorite ones were definitely the ones where Harry was like the bad boy. So very different from his real character, if I can put it that way.
Did you ever find it weird that you were listening to or reading fan fiction about not a fictional character, but like fan fiction about a real person? This is where like it gets weird to me.
I think back then, because I was still very young, to me it was not weird in any way. I think it's because I was kind of like idealizing who Harry Styles was or how I would have liked him to be. So because to me all of that was like in my imagination, it didn't occur to me that it would be weird in any way. But looking back, it's definitely kind of weird, especially because in real life, Harry Styles is nothing like the way he was portrayed in the fan fictions.
It's a fandom thing, though, right? It's because you were just such a big fan of One Direction and Harry Styles in general. You would just take any content you can get.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because when you are, I don't know, like 14, 15, 16 years old, like your mind kind of like, goes into this like fantasy world. And I think it craves that kind of stuff. And reading fan fiction is kind of like a way to fulfill those fantasies, if that makes sense. I know it sounds a bit weird, but that's kind of like how I can put it.
Ari makes a good point there in that, like, a lot of this is it's like your fantasies and fulfilling your fantasies, right? And
that's a really good point.
Is it fair to say that this is a very like female-dominated field? Because that's what it seems like.
Yeah, female. Anyone who doesn't identify as a male. Essentially, it's a very LGBTQIAS positive space, and for women as well.
And I know, like, we already kind of talked about where you'll find fan fiction, but is it very heavily manga, anime, just in the percentage of things, ratio of fan fiction out there?
No, that's just my angle, unfortunately.
Really?
Like Marvel, oh my God, the amount of fanfic. And Harry Potter is like the dominating fanfic.
Still?
Yeah, still.
Wow. You'd think that people have exhausted the angles of fan fiction for Harry Potter, like decades and decades worth. But I guess, like you said, the shipping wars and all this other stuff, all the unanswered questions. Oh, I'm so curious. Do authors or creators, content creators from the original media get involved? Like, have you yourself seen any examples of this?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Yes. Not for Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling.
That's too bad.
Another discussion. But there was this show that I watched on Netflix called Voltron. It was like a reboot, and it was in 2015-ish, 2016. And everyone shipped these two gentlemen heavily, to the point where the show producers were aware of it. And there are theories and there are rumors that they actively prevented the ship from not happening in the show because of how crazy, air quotes, the fans were about it. And I don't know the exact stories of like I don't know if there was like threats or anything like that to the actual show producers. I don't know if it got to that.
Oh my God.
It can. Yeah.
Is that a controversy, or did the producers outright say, like, we're not shipping these two?
I don't know if they outright said it. I can't I can't.
Or I was going to say conspiracy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a conspiracy. I remember being on Tumblr during it, and that was where the news was always dropped.
Okay, so if I'm intrigued with fan fiction, like where do I go to actually read it, consume it, buy it, or do whatever it is you do with fan fiction?
Okay, so I would go to Archive of Our Own first.
That's a website.
It is. It's the best one in my opinion in terms of, so first of all, it's a not-for-profit, and the way that everything is organized is through tagging, and it's very community-based, and it's just, it's really easy to find stuff. Wattpad is number 2, and that one is a for-profit, and we can talk about the difference between those because Wattpad literally has a production company that produces movies based on their popular fanfics.
What?
Yeah.
That's legal? Based on like existing IPs.
They have to change their names. A lot of them have been Harry Styles ones. So like it's Harden or it's what was it? There's an Anne Hathaway movie that just came out and it was also a Harry Styles one. I can't remember his name.
No way.
Henry? I don't know.
Poor Harry. God.
Okay, to be honest, just to say, I know people are dying to hear what I have to say about this. To put it on the record, if people wrote fanfic about me, I'd be down. I'd be like, okay, that's sick.
Yeah, I feel like Harry Styles is numb to the idea of anything now. Like, he's just so popular. It's the same thing as you said with Taylor Swift. Like, she's just such a commodity. Like, everything's being done about her. If it's not fanfic, it's something else, right? Like, it's just, they're too big.
What's the appeal? Like, why would you read fan fiction when you can read something from established and professional author?
Something original. So my angle is it's a media that you are already familiar with. So there's a sense of comfort. You know what's going to happen. You know what these people are like. And it's when you are, and this is similar to going to conventions and cosplaying too, when you're so excited.
Which you're famous for, by the way.
I'm world famous for cosplaying. When you're so excited and so passionate about something, and I do remember going through this with Naruto, it's like, I need to be in this universe. I need every aspect of my being to be in this universe right now. Like, I need to write about it. I need to explore the characters. I need to talk about Sasuke and Naruto. Not everyone's like that, though.
But I get that. Like, I actually get that. It's just trying to make the universe 3-dimensional, right? Like, you're just trying to immerse yourself in every single way possible. I'm curious because of something like Game of Thrones, where the author kind of stopped, the TV show kept going, people were heavily involved with just like where the plot should go, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think there's that aspect of it where like people don't feel fulfilled? Even though they love the universe, they don't feel fulfilled. So then you got to go in and fix it.
Yep. A lot of people do that. Game of Thrones. There's like characters who have gone totally evil and people have done full like AUs, which is another fanfic term, alternate universe, where this person isn't actually a bad guy. He was just misunderstood. And it's like what would happen in the canon. There's another term, canon story, which is like what is the real story.
The real story based on like the actual IP by
Yes.
the person who holds the IP, right?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. And what if this person did this differently? So there's much to explore.
What's an example of fan fiction that really ticked you off?
One that really ticked me off. So sometimes I don't have a specific one at the moment. Actually, I do, but I don't know if I feel comfortable saying it.
Aw.
Oh,
You know,
please.
just use fake names.
Yeah, let's go. Let's hear it.
Okay. It was a fanfic where it was a pairing, and one of the guys turned into a cat boy.
A cat boy?
A cat boy, which is where you become half cat, half boy.
Okay.
So you grow ears and a tail.
Is it weird to like break this down for people who are non-fan fiction fans?
Yeah.
Okay.
He turned into a cat boy, and I was like, okay, well, I'm really here for what's going on with the pairing, but I don't really care that he's turning into a cat boy. So I was like, the more I read it, I was like, okay, let's just pretend he's not turning into a cat boy. Let's just ignore it.
You were like unraveling the fanfic with your own version. Okay.
Yeah. And then I had to give up.
No, you didn't make it through?
I did not, because the turning into the Catboy became the main plot point, and I could not get past it. I couldn't pretend that it wasn't there.
How long was this story? Was this narrative?
I would say 40 to 50,000 words.
Ooh,
Wow.
Yeah.
that is commitment.
Oh, that's nothing. That's
So
scratch the surface.
it seems like you would have to sort through an ocean of garbage to find the nuggets of gold when it comes to fan fiction. How do you do that? How do you go and find the stuff that's actually good and readable?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that depending on your perspective, I mean, if you look at all fanfic, you're like, oh, it's all garbage. There's a fanfic for everyone out there. So, I might not be into reading something where there's alpha, beta, omega dynamics, which I don't know if we can talk about that later. I might not be into that, but others are, and good for them. So how do I filter that? I use Archive of Our Own because the filter is the best. And you can search your pairing. You can search the media. You can search the themes in the story. So, for example, alternate universe, like I said before, they do a lot of that. There's coffee shop AUs, which is where all the characters, they're all the same, but they're placed in the modern world and they work at a coffee shop.
Oh, they work there.
That sounds
baristas.
epic.
Like
Yeah.
what? Like what? Like what IP is put in a coffee shop situation?
I'm thinking of, so once again, my angle is anime and manga. So Haikyuu, which is a volleyball anime that has hundreds of characters that you can put into, that you can employ a small coffee shop.
And then they just like go through everyday situations.
Yeah, and there's normally romance too. Like one of them's a customer and he keeps on coming back.
Oh,
Yeah, it's cute.
yeah, I feel like I could get on board with fanfic.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cute. I'm not
You're
gonna
really
lie.
selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I feel like because a lot of these authors they're amateurs and they probably have like full-time jobs on the side and they're just doing this for fun. They're not deep in the publishing world and they're not beholden to editors or anything like that. There must be a lot of creativity and very unique writing styles. Would you say so?
Yes, 100%. So when you get someone to edit your fanfic that you wrote, that's your beta that reads through and edits. So you get your beta editor, beta writer. I can't remember what the full phrase is. Some people will have no betas. They'll just say, no beta editing, we died. I can't remember what the phrase is. But there are very unique approaches to storytelling. As someone who considers themselves a professional storyteller to some degree, I've been doing it forever, I really need that hero's journey, multiple arc. Like I really look for that in a story, even in fanfic, and I do hold them in that regard sometimes. But some of them could just be, here's 5,000 words of your favorite character getting plowed.
Oh my.
Like you said, there's a fan fiction for everyone.
Oh, truly.
Yeah.
Truly. Like there's one of the more famous unique angles, I would say that, is, I think it was, oh my God, you guys are going to hate this. It was the Hogwarts castle and the squid monster that lived in the lake. Was there a squid? Like there was...
Yes.
Oh, like a Kraken thing.
Yeah, and they were paired together.
The castle?
The castle and the squid?
Yeah.
Yo, I really do want to know if hallucinogens are involved in some of these fanfics.
No,
Their imagination, though.
Yeah.
that's
I
fine.
Something
mean-
different.
At some point, it's just a reach, right?
Yeah, and you'll get people...
Like everything else has been done before. Let's go with this pairing.
Yeah, why not? And you'll get people who are writing these in between writing their thesis or like their doc. Yeah, like like the people that write fanfic and post like weekly or consistently are gods. Like I don't understand their productivity.
Okay, well, can you tell us more about the people who actually write it? Like, do they
Yeah.
make money?
Break the
Who
stereotype.
are they? Yeah, break the stereotype. Like, tell us what you know.
Fanfic writers are just everyday people. You know what I mean? like, so if we go back in history of fanfic, Star Trek, Kirk and Spock were like the first ship to really break fanfic. And it was just like women and girls and everyday people who were like, the world of Star Trek is so cool, and it still is. And this pairing, like they obviously have to be together, but they're not going to be together in their actual IP or media or whatever. So we have to write about it.
I actually have a really relevant quote from an author and journalist, Lev Grossman. He says, "I adore the way fan fiction authors engage and critique the source text by manipulating and breaking their rules. Some of it is straight up homage, but a lot of it is really aggressive towards the source text. One tends to think of it as written by total fanboys and fangirls as a kind of a worshipful act. But a lot of times, you read it and it'll be like, what if Star Trek had an openly gay character on the bridge? And of course, the point is that they don't, and they wouldn't, because they don't have the balls, or they're beholden to their advertisers or whatever." There's a powerful critique, almost a punk-like anger being expressed there, which I find fascinating and interesting and really cool.
Absolutely. And that reminds me back to the Voltron, like the pairing that the fans were so passionate about was a gay pairing. And it's like, hey, well, why can't you just make them gay? Like, just do it. It's
Like in
not
the
that
real
hard.
show. Like in the real show, they really wanted them to be gay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so there is like two sides to this though, right? There's the side of like, yeah, the creators wouldn't go there, so let's go there ourselves, which is nice and can be aggressive in and of itself. But then there's like the mob mentality part, which is what I think you're describing with the Voltron situation, where it's like, do it now, we demand this. Do you think that there's enough power in that kind of thing? Like going back to Harry Potter, and it wasn't even just fan fiction, there was just a lot of people who wanted a lot of things, and because it was such a big phenomenon, we kind of got to the point where we're like, is J.K. Rowling gonna change her mind? Is she gonna be influenced? That kind of feel.
For Game of Thrones, or A Song of Ice and Fire, the fantasy series by George R. R. Martin, he obviously hasn't finished the story. And in the meantime, people have come up with so many theories and so many predictions and fan fictions around that like he's openly said that like he knows people who have predicted the ending of the series. And like that just goes to show how much engagement there is with fandoms and fan fiction.
Yeah.
Can it be too much?
Right? Like there's a turning point as a fan when it is like, okay, maybe you need to focus on your own life a little bit.
Yo,
Not to be mean,
it
but
sounded kind of mean.
yeah.
But it's true.
But
Yeah.
it's inevitable, right? Because everything is accessible to everybody now.
Yeah. And I also think it's part of a bigger thing of just growing up. Like, I have bills to pay now and I have to make an income, so I can't sit around thinking about Sasuke and Naruto 24 hours a day.
Well, maybe not
Fair.
24 hours a day, but maybe 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Like if it's time well wasted, then it wasn't wasted time at all.
You're so right.
Like if you really enjoy it, then like what's wrong with that? Let people enjoy what they enjoy, however weird it may be.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think we should take a quick break, but there's still so much I want to ask you.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll be right back. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Shamansky with Ramya Amithin. Nisrin Abdelmajid is our technical producer, and with us is Cassandra Chaddock. She's our co-worker in marketing, but she's also an expert in fan fiction. We've been talking about that with her and learning so much. I have had my opinion changed, and I've been thoroughly convinced that I should look up some of these, especially with IPs that I'm familiar with, because I feel like I could find some good stuff. Can you give us an example of a fan fiction series that's extremely well regarded as being like exceptionally well written and very popular?
So none of them ever are well regarded in the sense that
ever.
Well, here's the thing about that is that it's the general public looks at it as like, oh, this is a thing that women and non-binary people and who else enjoy, so let's not take it seriously. When there are beautiful, beautiful works written out there, like back to Sam and Frodo, I didn't personally read this, but there is one that's a complete rewrite of the Lord of the Rings, the 3 books.
Wow.
And it's like, but if they fell in love, and it is so, I have heard reviews, and it is so beautiful. And I've also read fics that have made me cry because they're so moving. But a popular one right now that I would say is, there's this, I can't remember the name of it, but it is Harry Potter, but from the angle of...
The Handmaid's Tale?
Thank you. Yes, The Handmaid's
Yeah.
Tale.
Oh boy.
And I have seen, so I've never read it, but I've seen TikToks reviewing it where it's literally changed people's lives because it's so well done, I guess. I don't know more than that.
It sounds like fan fiction is doing things that traditional publishing could never do, like blending 2 existing IPs. That would never happen. But like these things you're mentioning here, like they're not making money off of this at all, eh? Are they?
No. Wattpad, I think there's a way you can make money, but you have to have like millions of views on your work. I've also seen people publish their fanfic, but they've had to change a lot of like the names and a lot of
The
stuff.
rights around this stuff has got to be finicky to deal with.
Yeah. So it's possible, but it's hard.
Do people usually say like, hey, check out my Patreon to support? You know what I mean? Like treat it like an independent artist thing?
Yes. I think that if you have a favorite author that you love their fanfic, I think they won't put other IPs behind a paywall. I think it will be their own original content, because I've seen people recently try to do that and they've gotten scorned by the community for trying to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what is it about the culture of fan fiction that made them so scornful about that?
I guess it's that they don't have the rights to the original media. So why... it's such a gray area. Like, I'm thinking of even fan art that you can sell at conventions is such a gray area because people do it. I don't really know what the argument was that was like, it's not fair to do this. I guess maybe because everyone else is so open and
At least for me, I feel like the deeper implication is that, it might be creative writing, but it's based on an existing IP, an existing world, existing characters. So maybe people feel like that shuts it down as an original piece of work. It's similar to, making money for performing a cover of a song or something.
I can
Is that
see,
even a fair
yeah, I could see
comparison?
why people would have objections to that. It's you're profiting off an IP you don't own. Like, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And
Even though it's primarily your creative work.
but to what extent is it your work, and to what extent is it like based on somebody else's work?
True.
It's not
Well,
as
it's
simple as
based on somebody
50-50,
else's
but like
work.
if you're doing
No.
like that crossover you mentioned, Cassandra, between Harry Potter and the Handmaid's Tale, like you're basing yourself off a lot of pre-existing creative material that you don't own. If you were to monetize that, like that's very, very iffy. And like, forget like legally speaking, like ethically speaking, I kind of have an objection to that. Do you?
Yeah.
I guess. I just think about like fan art that people sell, and the angle is that it is an IP, but they've added their own artistic style to it. And I guess you could say that for writing too, but
Yeah,
if it's a
I see the
novel,
parallel. Yeah.
if it's a novel
Yeah,
and
but fan art is a still image. Like, I'm assuming that's what we're talking about, right? Like a painting or whatever, something that's captured as a still, which feels a lot less dimensional than taking a universe and characters and plots and then manipulating that into a fanfic version.
Totally. I wonder what the editing process was like for 50 Shades of Grey then. It was like,
What do you
okay,
mean?
well, his name can't be Edward and her name can't be Bella. And then I'm sure it was probably based in Forks or wherever, because 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction.
How?
What?
You guys didn't know that?
No, I did know that, but I don't see where the connection is. I always
no,
wondered.
I did not know that. Can somebody start from scratch,
Yeah,
please?
where are the vampires in 50 Shades of Grey?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
So I think
This is a bombshell.
it was the E.L. James was like, let's take Twilight, but make it really kinky BDSM stuff, and then also add some plot to keep people interested, because you have to some degree if it's going to be a long novel. And I think, yeah, they
Oh my
must,
gosh, it's all making sense now.
right? They must have.
That is wild.
And you can tell too when they've taken characters from something else and basically just plopped them in as side characters in their story, because it's like you can tell, Kate or whoever the friend is this is what whoever, like, I don't know, you can just tell because they have no character development in the story. Yeah. They're just there.
Okay, now here's a question around this then. Fan fiction is like one way to say like inspiration, right? Like Twilight was the inspiration very directly around 50 Shades of Grey.
Yep.
Like they took the two, manipulated the heck out of it, changed some things around, and then made it into a whole legit other thing, which is incredible now. But can't we say that about anything then?
Yeah.
Like, right? Like, this character or that person was the influence / inspiration for this, for that. I mean, like you talk to an author and you ask them, who were the inspirations around these characters, and I'm sure they have some answer or another, and they could say easily from another TV show, from another book, from a classic.
Yeah, I mean, if it's any kind of art, if you look at it from an art history perspective, it's always going to be a response to the previous movement. And we've had so many art movements at this point. It's just this and this combined, and it's this. It's like everything is just, yeah.
All art is derivative, and it seems like almost a losing battle to get the trademark and copyright.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. It's just a losing battle, right? But to your point, Rams, I came across a book. I haven't read it yet, but it's firmly in my reading list now, called The Fan Fiction Reader by Francesca Cappa. I've seen it described as a text, like basically a textbook for librarians and educators to better respect and understand fan fiction. And it makes the point that there's always been this urge inside of us to remix and retell stories in different ways in new settings. Like, think of how many different versions there are of like Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
There's so many different versions. It's just very natural. And I think it's a good storytelling mechanic to take a pre-existing story that you know and love and to recontextualize it to make new points. There's also a good parallel between our innate need to retell stories and this like remix culture that we have when it comes to like the internet.
Absolutely. Like, I'm thinking of recently, I discovered what Final Fantasy VII is, which is a video game.
Yeah.
It's so sick. And I was like, this is so awesome. I need to write a book loosely inspired by it. So I just started doing that. And the rest is history, as they say, and it's probably never going to get finished, but I'm working on it.
You're working on your very own fan fiction?
I'm trying to differentiate it enough that it isn't, but it basically is at this point. Except, yeah.
Right. Yeah, if you do it right.
Well,
people may not even notice.
You're saying the quiet part out loud. You're just being more honest about it. You're saying my art is derivative and I don't care. Like, because all art is derivative. It's fan fiction readers or at least writers they're just more honest.
Absolutely.
They put tags like, this is Lord of the Rings fan fiction. This is Harry Potter fan fiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a bit about the history of fan fiction? And like because it seems to exist on the internet almost exclusively because it never gets published into like print books, excluding some extreme cases. Like, did it exist before the internet, and like, how did it get started?
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, most fandom related stuff originated from Star Trek, like in the 60s.
The
That's
60s. Wow. Huh.
60s, 70s. That was like the
Damn.
first major thing. There's probably absolutely fanfic before about like your neighbor and the guy across the street. They, for some reason, you thought should be together. I don't know. But it started with Kirk and Spock. Everyone shipped them and thought they should be together. But like you said earlier, depending on the network or the producers, that was never going to happen. And I do believe reading somewhere that people would print out little books, zines, I guess, with different stories in them and share them.
What did you call them? Zines?
Zines.
What's a zine?
That's like an art term. It's like a magazine, kind of. It's just like a collection of art stuff.
Like a pamphlet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you buy those?
More like a magazine.
Yeah. Comic stores sell them. Like a lot of local book stores might invest in zines.
So it's like a magazine for fandoms, specific
Yeah.
fandoms.
Mhm.
I think so. I think that's what happened. And then as we got the internet, fanfic started to be a lot more accessible. I was talking to my friends about it last night, actually, and they said that people would just share like Word documents with each other about this fanfic's really good. You should read this. Yeah. And then another major event in fanfic history is the iconic fanfic. Nizreen, I don't know if you know this, My Immortal.
Oh, yeah.
We,
The infamous
As
My
in-
Immortal,
The song?
no, the fanfic
the Harry Potter fanfic.
with starring Ebony, Dementia, Darkness, Raven Way.
Excuse me?
That's her
I
name.
don't know that one.
Say her name again.
Ebony, Dementia, Darkness, Raven Way. I think that's in the right. And the Way last name is for Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance.
Oh,
So there's a
my.
lot. There's a lot of media that's influencing this piece.
So what's the importance of My Immortal? Like, it's like a landmark in fan fiction history, but like, is it because it was good or bad or noteworthy? Like, what was it about it?
It from a technical standpoint, it's bad, but it captures the essence of what fanfic was at that time, which is, this is me. I have black hair with red streaks, I think, or something like that. I'm so cool. Everyone loves me. I'm in this universe, and Harry and Drake are going to fight over. I can't remember what the actual plot was, but like the characters that I love are going to be fighting over me, and also Hermione's my best friend, and whatever.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
hot.
It's a
Yeah.
self-insert.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The author is self-inserting
It is the
herself. Okay.
literal fantasy being put to fan fiction.
Yes.
There is zero
Ari's point.
filter. Zero
Mm.
filter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My friends were
Wow.
saying that their friend wrote fanfic of their friend group, and then like this week, this person's hanging out with, I don't know, Harry Potter, and we're gonna go,
Dude, that's awesome. That
Yeah.
would be so much fun to read.
right? You don't have to do the work; you just get to read it.
Yeah, that would be so much fun to read. But it's exactly what Ari was talking about, right? Like where you're just, these are the things that you feel, like especially after feeling so immersed into a universe. You're like, I wish I could be there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to
So,
find the balance.
so you just execute it. You say, okay,
just
I will put
execute it.
myself in there.
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah.
And then you become Ebony, Dementia, Darkness, Raven Way.
And if I
Um,
recall correctly, that character, I don't remember her full name, has an immaculate wardrobe. Like the
Oh,
most
yeah.
ridiculous sense of fashion. In like every chapter, she does like a whole 2 paragraphs
Okay,
about her
seriously,
outfit.
how long is this?
It's
How long is
long.
My Immortal?
I actually don't know if it was finished.
And you said it was technically bad, so it was just like a bad
Yeah, I mean, because
continuous.
if as an outsider, if you're reading it, it's like, today I hung out with Harry Potter, and then like we wanted to make out, but then we didn't, and whatever. But
Okay.
to the reader, to if you're the author, that's awesome. Or if you are also want to
Wow.
self-insert into Harry Potter, you can read that and be like, yeah, this is great.
It's inspiration for your own self. Is there obviously there's a lot of discussion in the comment sections of these fanfic posts, but is there a lot of like discussion groups? I'm thinking of like book club scenarios or something like Clubhouse channels where people just hop on and talk about fanfic.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say so. The community is there's like Twitter and TikTok. And Nizreen, what are you thinking of?
Twitter used to be the main social media platform for fan fiction, where people would post. Or Tumblr. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I remember Tumblr, people would post like about celebrities, fan fictions, and they were obsessed. I mean, that was their thing every day. That was their life every day, just posting fan fictions on Tumblr and Twitter.
It was their job.
I remember such a crazy time.
Someone made a frat boy Niall Horan from One Direction playlist. Yeah, and it was so sick. Like the music was actually really good, and I can picture the exact image that they used, and I found it on Tumblr. Oh my god, piece of history.
So if I want to go onto the website and I go to the search bar, like I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now. How do I use the tag systems that you see on Archive of Our Own and Wattpad? Okay, give me a tutorial on like how to actually use these websites, because I'm kind of confused. Like, do you download the fan fiction? Do you just like read it on a page as if it was like a blog? Like what do I type in the search box? Like, tell me how to do this. Yeah.
Okay. So you can read it in the browser. You can also download it to read in an app or like on a Kindle or whatever. You can upload them to there.
Oh, okay, cool.
If I were looking for a fic to read, what I would do is I would go to Archive of Our Own. I'd type in the ship, or I'd go through the media, find the ship, and then I'd look for something that has the most kudos or hits. So that's the most popular or the most well-liked. You give kudos when you really like the fic.
What's a kudos?
It's just like essentially just hitting like at the bottom of the page.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And those are the bangers. Those are the ones you want to start off with.
So you can like sort it by the amount of kudos. Like I can type in, say I want to read some fan fiction about Gimli and Legolas from Lord of the Rings.
There's a lot.
And I ship them. Okay, it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
Okay, say I want to do that. I want to ship those two. They go on an adventure and fall in love. I don't know. What do I type in the box? Lord of the Rings, Gimli, Legolas, ship.
I would type Gimli / Legolas, or this is a deeper piece of history. Whoever's the top in the relationship will be first. Whoever's in the bottom will be, so like it'll be this person / this person.
Yo, that's obviously Legolas.
Okay, so Legolas is the top in this scenario. Legolas / Gimli, you search that. You click on their pairing, and then you go to the filters. You filter by hits or kudos. And this is me. I might not be like everyone else, but I do not like reading unfinished works. So you can organize by which ones are complete.
Oh, okay.
And by language, too, which is good.
Okay, there's multiple languages, too.
Yeah.
The fact that that's a filter option means that people are just putting up all kinds of unfinished work, huh?
Oh, yeah. I am guilty of that, of never finishing.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, I am.
Well, like in progress and unfinished, right? Like there's a difference. Do they make that distinction on the websites?
Yes.
They do? Oh, okay,
and you can also, on Archive of Our Own, abandon fics, whereas like the fic still exists, but it's like orphaned, so you don't know who the author is. It's just kind of floating in the universe because you don't want to be associated with it. I know, it's sad.
Is that because people are not sure if it'll be taken well?
People fall out of fandoms and don't want to be associated with them anymore if they have like a bad experience. Yeah.
So they just remove them. What kind of a bad experience?
Yeah.
The one that I'm thinking about is from the BTS angle, where the fandom got way too intense and someone didn't like to be a part of it anymore.
BTS, the Korean boy band?
Yes. Lots of fic about them.
Lots. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I find interesting? I think it's so cool that, when people leave their drafts open for other people to finish their stories. And
Huh.
I think it's so interesting how people are just incorporating different content to that story, and it just goes in a very different direction, and you're not reading like a very predictable story.
So it's kind of like one author handing off their work to another author to continue.
Yeah, like an
Huh.
open story. Like Cassandra, have you ever read one of those?
I don't think I have. I think I've read some where it's like a collab with two authors, but not
Hmm.
in that sense. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember people used to post like links on Twitter just for other people to kind of finish their story. And yeah, a lot of them are part of boy bands for sure.
Niz, what was your favorite fan fiction? You seem to be well versed in this.
Listen, I don't have a favorite, but if I did pick, it would be this was back in the day also, okay? Just remember that, but it was my Vampire Diaries obsession. Um yeah, it was one of those. I used to love reading fan fiction about Vampire Diaries cuz I shipped a lot of people in there.
I love that.
Did you ever write it?
No, no, no.
Aw.
No, I don't have that creativity. I don't think so.
Hmm.
I won't do the work. I'll just read it.
Just a quick note. The other day I took a look at some of these fan fiction websites. The two that we mentioned today, Wattpad and Archive of Our Own. Wattpad with the screen reader is like accessible with an asterisk. So you can read everything, go through, but like it's not exactly the best labeled thing. It's a bit of a mess to go through. Archive of Our Own is pretty nice though. It's easy to navigate and everything. And the search functions seem really extensive, like Cassandra, you were saying earlier.
Really, that's great. Yeah, Archive of
Mhm.
Our Own is like the top fan, in my opinion, because Wattpad is a for-profit. It's got that like corporate aspect to it, which is funny that their accessibility is bad because it's like, okay, well, don't you pay people to? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because Archive of Our Own is community based, so
And Wattpad, that's WATPad?
WATTPAD.
ATT. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention about fan fiction before we wrap up here? I feel like there's so much to dive into.
I know there is so much. I think we covered a lot of it. I still read fan fiction. It's embarrassing. Hopefully my boss who works here doesn't hear this. But
We'll send it directly to her.
no, please don't.
Is there any universes that you actively avoid getting into too much fan fiction? Like you mentioned BTS, where you're like, it got too intense. Some people had to really start boycotting. Were there any other lines crossed, or just like, this is too much fantasy, like it's kind of tainting the universe? Is that a thing? Do people go through that?
I don't think so. I mean, I
Or
think
is that just too anti-fan fiction of a statement?
it might be because like if I really like the universe of a fanfic, I won't actually be interested in reading the AUs, like the coffee shop AU or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, I want to read what's going on in the universe because this universe is very well developed and really interesting. I can't say I've had. I mean, if it's a show or something that I'm not in, like I won't read Marvel fanfic because I don't really.
You're not into it, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you note that fan fiction is your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, I think so. And like,
Mm.
I think there's similar to a lot of the fandom stuff. There's like this ageist approach a little bit to it. It's like, okay, well, you're 30 years old. Why are you reading fanfic? That's weird. You should be like nursing a kid or whatever. And it's like, okay, no. Well, like the older you get and the more experience and money you have, we're the people that are making this content. We're the people that are, kind of artistically at the forefront of it because we are adults and we're able to do that.
Yeah.
Cassandra, I want to thank you so much for making time for us. I think at least Ramya and I are very compelled to actually look into some fan fiction with the IPs that we're already interested in. And please send us along your Final Fantasy VII fan fiction so we can review it on the show, okay?
Please.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you.
I actually will. Thank you so much. I had
Yeah.
so much fun. Like literally, I've been wanting to do a PowerPoint presentation of fanfic forever, and this is kind of
Wow.
that.
This is the
This is your
prequel to
chance.
that.
This is my chance.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for this episode of AMI Audiobook Review. You can leave us some feedback at 1-866-509-4545, or you can leave us an email at feedback@ami.ca. I'm Jacob Szymanski. Rami Amathan was with me. Nisrin Abdelmajid is our technical producer, and our special guest was Cassandra Chaddock. Thanks for listening.